Hey guys, welcome back to the Free Life Agents podcast. Today we have a really special guest joining us, like we always do. But this person, she is a really great friend of mine, and although she is not a real estate agent, full disclosure, she is somebody who has worked in the real estate space, and not necessarily not now that that's important or anything, but because we like to cover different topics on this podcast and help real estate entrepreneurs, professionals, agents, investors, whoever, live a better, more fulfilling life and achieve their success, not just in business, but in life. But she is a very dear friend of mine and very great with mindset coaching. I'm actually going to get ready to work with her very intimately in the near future as well. But please welcome to the show, Kacy Singh. Welcome, Kacy.
Hey, Kobe. Thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you for taking this interview. Yeah, so I mean, before we kind of dig into things, would you mind like just introducing yourself to all of our listeners out there, telling them a little bit more about who you are, what your background is, what you do
Yeah.
now, and how that came about?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm like, where do I start? But I will start at the perfect time. It'll be awesome. So essentially, my background, like when I first was like, what do I want to do for my career? Like right out of high school kind of thing, when there's like the pressure of, I mean, you went through this yourself recently of like choosing a different path, right? But
Right.
when I was in high school, it was very much just like, okay, like where do you want to go from here? And for me, it had been ingrained into me that you got to be a doctor. So my parents had come to Canada, that's where I live now, from India as immigrants. So I'd grown up pretty poor, like living off like, canned beans and stuff like that. Like I saw my parents work three jobs. When my brother was born, for example, I was like 8 years old, like babysitting a baby essentially. So just kind of to give you the picture of that's where I was like, I came from. And so essentially my parents were just like, Kacy, you have so much potential, you could be a doctor. And that was like the thing, right? And so I, in my 7, 8 year old mind, had the wiring of, if you want to be successful, Kacy, and get out of this kind of energy of poverty, like at the time, you have to be a doctor because that's the only way. So essentially, I spent a lot of my young years like committed to that goal. After high school, I got into paramedicine. I became a paramedic. I studied pre-medicine, so I was actually applying to medical schools and I was doing the exams, writing my MCATs, and for like a decade essentially, like I did that. And I worked in that field and I was just like getting really close to actually becoming a doctor. But what I realized, I actually was not very happy. So like it's that moment when you're like feeling like shit so frequently that you start to question things in your reality. It's like that awakening that happens for most of us. Some of us will see it but then not do anything about it because we're like, well, this is just life. But then there's opportunities in life that show up that have you take action and see things differently. So the example, I want to share that because what I'm getting at is I ended up doing, just by nature of the universe, it presented me with this opportunity to do this course called the Landmark Forum. Essentially, it's a personal professional development course. So I did the course. It was a weekend, 3-day course. It literally changed my life. On day one, after 12 hours of being in the seminar, it was my first ever personal development thing right out of university because I had only been so focused on just like the traditional educational model. I didn't really know about transformative education, which was what this was. I like came out of that being like, holy shit, what am I doing with my life? I have been living for other people. I've been trying to be the perfect daughter, the perfect student, the perfect blah, 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 right? Like fitting into these norms and saying yes to everybody and trying to people please when really I don't actually give a shit about any of this. Just to be completely straight, right? It's like, I was like, I don't care about genetics. Like, yes, I know it's important, but I'm like, molecular genetics and studying like, such intense stuff that I'm like, I don't get this and I don't care about this because I'm just not built for it. So essentially, I went on to love the work of personal development. I like dove deeper into a Landmark, started doing a lot of their courses, started traveling, like just doing a lot of things that fueled my soul. I'd been doing so much that like was in the mind that I was like overthinking and trying to and doing things I think I should do. And then a lot of people are like, can be caught in that path. But I freed myself from that. And, it was hard because, of course, you start to wonder about your career and where you're going in life. And there's all these programs that come up, right, of what success means. But essentially, I was just feeling free and just traveling. Didn't have a lot of money, but I made it work. And eventually I decided, okay, well, I want to start my own business. So after I met my husband in 2017, we started to get into the work world of like remote working and like working online. So I started to write, blog writing, just kind of like picking up all these skills of like, how do people make money online? And so learned that. We ended up learning all about like the world of marketing. And then we started working with real estate agents. So we had a company, had being keyword, and I'll get into that shortly. But essentially, we had a company which helped agents generate conversations. So essentially, in the simplest forms, it was just helping them get any leads and then transform those into actual conversations. So where we excelled was actually the relationship part. Anyone can really like go online and just kind of like help you get leads, right? We wanted to help our agents and our business partners essentially generate high quality conversations, which actually built meaningful relationships with people. And so as I was working with a lot of my clients, I started having great relationships with them. And then they started asking me to coach them. And that kind of led into this whole other world that I was like, oh, this is what I'm meant to be doing. But essentially last year we went through some pretty intense stuff in our personal life. And as a result, we couldn't focus very much on the business, on the lead generation aspect of it. And what I strongly believe is like when you are ready to step into the next version of yourself, anything that does not align, does not belong, will fall out of your life. And it can be very painful, right? Because we have an idea and we want to cling to things. But essentially, it was really painful. Our business fell apart. We, stopped getting new clients. We weren't able to deliver as well. There was just a lot of stuff that just, I'm going to be honest, like it just fell apart. And through that falling apart, we got really humbled and really clear about, for me especially, like, what do I want to do? So I stepped into the world of coaching, which has been my passion, and speaking, and really like getting people connected to the true essence of themselves. And so I know it was like a longer version of who am I, but I just felt like it was important for people to see that journey so they can get that it's not always been this way. I haven't always been the person who's like speaking these words, or, it's like it's been a buildup and a journey to get to this place. And I've dealt with my fair of, shit shows, so to speak.
Exactly. And I think that's really beautiful that you're touching on these points that not a lot of successful people, or people that other people consider themselves successful, touch on, which is the struggles that they've been through. And
Oh
that's
yeah.
one of the things that I think it should be shed more light on is when you see a successful person, don't just ask them, how are they so successful? Ask them what failures they're actually experiencing in their life right now and what they've experienced in the past. And that's what I've been really curious about. When I talk to my mentors or people that I find that, I think I can benefit from as well. But what you said about, your upbringing and kind of the expectations that were put on you as a young kid, as a child, I think that was really interesting because I kind of had similar, not as probably not as intense expectations as I'm, hearing from what you're saying, but similar expectations in a sense. But I always thought that deep down in my subconscious, or even just consciously, I knew that wasn't what I wanted to do. Is that something that you knew either consciously or subconsciously, or were you so programmed by the external expectations and the external environment that you just never really gave it much thought and you kind of just follow the path?
That's a really good question. It's kind of tuning into my younger self now. I can definitely see moments of myself asking myself the metacognition, thinking about thinking, right? Even in that
Mhm.
experience as a young kid, I can see myself being like, is this what I really want to do? But then the programming is so strong because of the external environment and what you're seeing day to day, what I was seeing, that it was like squash. I was like, yeah, of course it is. Don't be silly. Don't be stupid. Like that was the kind of language that, often we're taught to speak to ourselves with, is like not kind. So essentially I would just like, I was very intense. Like if you look at like like energy and like yin and yang. So like the yin is the free flowing feminine divine energy, and it's like the creativity, right? You can often have it as part of connected to the part of the brain that's the creative side, whereas the yang is like the masculine dominant intense. And what I would do is stifle my creativity but go more into the yang side, which I was then like super hyper like focused, hyper intense. I didn't really like allow for creativity, because the question that kept coming up for me was like, well, is this going to make me money? Because I was so scared of being broke and so scared of being like poor and homeless. Essentially, that was the driving factor, which I don't think is necessarily wrong, because I know a lot of people like use that to fuel their pain. But then there comes the point where you got to ask yourself, is this authentically what I want? Or am I doing this in spite of? Right. So those were the programs that now, as like a almost 30-year-old, I'm like, okay, like going back in and looking at these things. So I love that question. I think it's brilliant. And to simply answer the question, yes, I can see moments of myself asking that.
Exactly. And I think that's what everybody who's kind of come from that path almost has. I think, in my opinion, from what I've seen, is that when they were a younger kid, or when they were, having expectations put on them, they always had something within them. They couldn't really tell what it was, but they always did have something within them that they just knew that wasn't
Mm-hmm.
the path
Yeah.
that they were meant for. And that's why, we were able to bloom into, what you are today. And that's
Mm-hmm.
that's a seed essentially planted in you. And then, just to expand on something else you mentioned, and I think it's super interesting. I'm just kind of realizing this for the first time now, is that you were actually so intense in chasing a life that others expected of you, not really because of what you wanted, but because of what you were scared of, having. And that's actually
Mm-hmm.
that's so interesting, because if you went down that path, I don't mean to, say anything that, or predict anything, but you might have been in such a worse, financial situation. And that all stemmed from the fear of having a bad financial
Yes.
situation. And I mean, that's something that's super interesting to me. I mean, is that something that you're seeing people struggle with when you're, whether with your coaching clients, or, people that you've worked with? Or is that, am I right on that myself when I talk about that, that was your experience as well?
Yeah, because if you think about it, whatever you think about, you become or you create. So like it's that saying of whether you believe it or you don't, you're right. So like, if you can or if you can't, you're right either way, because it's your perspective. So like and this is something I've learned over time, is the more I am scared of something happening, or I think about the fear and then take the action, it actually manifests itself. Like it creates the fear in my life, like it creates the experiences which then cause more fear. So it's like this feedback loop. So if I'm like doing something, let's say for example, like, when you're an entrepreneur, there's like a lot of, sometimes there can be a lot of pressure, because like we're not all, okay, great, we have capital and we have the luxurious time of just chilling and doing our thing and bringing in money when it comes. It's like there's pressure, which can be good at times to help move the needle forward. But for example, when there's pressure and it can be intense and we're driving ourselves from that fear space, for me, even personally speaking, it's like I've essentially said yes to working with people in the past, like just talking about the marketing side, where I didn't actually want to work with. And then it led to even a shittier experience later down the road, because in the moment of making the choice or taking the action, how you are feeling right before that three-dimensional action that's going to manifest, that energy is going to manifest into that experience. So to put it, in real life terms, it's like there was like, we were in this like really intense traumatic experience last year. Money was really challenging. We weren't sure how it was going to come in. And then it was just like saying yes to somebody just for the sake of, okay, well, we need to make this money. Right. And coming from a fear space of not having enough, saying yes, and then having a really crappy experience where they're like wanting a refund, or they're not happy, the account's not successful, they're doing chargebacks, the relationship's all messed up. It's like, I can't even tell you. It's like, if like taking no action would have been better than taking action from fear.
Wow, that is such a powerful statement. I don't really know what to even say about that. And especially for, I would say especially like young entrepreneurs, but really entrepreneurs everywhere today.
Mhm.
Especially, I mean, really in the real estate field too, where it's all about action, action, take
Yes.
massive action. That's what everybody says, right? But
Yes.
what you just said, that was so important. Sometimes not taking action is better than taking the wrong actions. And I know you
Well, not
mentioned
even wrong, but it's the vibration and the energy from which you're taking the action. So it's like, because then, just sorry to cut you off, but I gotta put
no,
this
it's all
in
good.
there. I'm like, okay, because I don't want people taking
Mhm.
this as the wrong way of like, well, I'm not wanting to take the wrong action, so I'm just gonna do nothing. Because there's that mentality of being overthinking and scared, right? Of like, well, I could go left or I could go right. Well, I don't want to make the wrong choice, so I'm just not going to do anything, which is like the freeze of like being an entrepreneur. You're just like, shit, I don't know what to do, so I'm just going to be here. And then you're in this like, this space where you're just kind of like done moving forward. So that is different than taking an action based on fear. So like you can have fear in the action in the sense of, let's say there's client A, there's client B. Client A is like a multi-million dollar, for example, as a realtor, it's like client A, there's this like multi-million dollar unit they're looking for, and it's like really scary for you because you've never done anything like that before, right? But then client B is like your typical everyday, like, average household client, which is okay, you've done it. But you decide, I'm going to go for client, the other client, the multi-million dollar one. I would say that, yeah, when you're going to go for it, fear is going to show up in the taking of the action, but you're going to feel in your heart this pull of like, okay, I got to expand, because you want to expand as a being. Life wants to give to you, life wants you to expand and create new experiences, right? So you're going to go for this thing you've never done before with this excitement, expansion, maybe some fear showing up, and then you do it, right? Versus you're taking the action from fear. So if you're like, oh shit, I have no clients, and then all of a sudden this one person shows up, which is so shitty, and you don't want to work with them, and they're the awful, like not a right fit at all. It's like, are you going to take the action because you're scared that if you don't, you'll be broke? Or is the action to say, no, thank you, I think you could find a better agent for you that would fit you better, right? It's that boundary too. So that's just kind of what I wanted to clear up. It's not right or wrong. It's more from what intention. That's a good word. What's the intention with which you're taking the action? And if you're in a fear space, if you're feeling like your nervous system is frantic, you're feeling all over the place, it's better to just wait. It's better to just breathe, take a moment, especially now with so much energy in the world and so much franticness and all that. It's like, okay, just take a moment, breathe, ask yourself, is this aligned? Is this not? And then take the action, whatever it is. If it's saying no to the client, that's an action. If it's saying yes, that's an action. If it's, hey, I just need some more time because I need to sort through some stuff, that's an action too.
Okay, yeah, thanks for clearing that up because
Yeah, you're welcome.
I didn't want people to misunderstand it as well, and I think that was a really great expansion and explanation on that point as well. And something that you mentioned in there is that I relate that to people trusting their instinct, trusting their gut.
Mm.
We hear that a lot,
Mhm.
but it really nobody kind of knows what that is, and they doubt
Mm.
themselves. And then sometimes when you're thinking on a decision for so long, you're actually your gut instinct might be right, but you've convinced yourself it's wrong. And at that point, I think it becomes not aligned with
Mm.
what the universe actually wants you to have. But I mean, if you can just like expand on that and help our listeners out there kind of explain, how does someone know whether an action is aligned with their true intentions, and how do you even begin setting these intentions that might for some people might seem so abstract and so far away,
Right,
especially
right.
when they're in the daily grind of real estate where they're just chasing their next deal, or an
Yeah.
entrepreneur chasing their next business opportunity. So how do you set that intention in a more practical way, I guess?
Yeah, so that's a great question because you asked a couple in there, so I'll address them. The first was
Okay.
like around the gut instinct, right? Knowing, and that's your body telling you something. And then the second is around intentions and how do you actually put them into your life and put them to use, because it's like, I feel like spirituality and like all that kind of world has like a bad rap in the world of like the corporate and, you know, the hustle culture, because there's so much like foo-foo and woo-woo stuff that's not very grounded in the reality. I know for me, it's like I've been on the trajectory where I've been like super like out of my body, being like, oh my God, yeah, I want to like create them, like that typical hippie, you know, smoking pot experience. But then it's when I realized, okay, I need to bring that energy into my body. I need to be on earth because I chose to be here. So the way that we're going to live on earth is to actually have material things and to actually set intentions and make shit happen, right? And we need money to do that. We need these experiences to do that. So let's just be here now. So just kind of wanted to, I mean, I don't know why I felt called to say that, but someone listening may have wanted to hear that, right? But essentially, first thing with your gut instinct is I trust my gut because I have a clean gut. And this may be controversial, okay? So I'm going to go down this path now. I stopped drinking alcohol. I have not eaten meat for over 5 years. I'm very intentional about what I put into my body. And that word again, intentional. My intention is to have a healthy body, have a healthy mind, to have healthy experience of life. Therefore, when that intention is in my life, think of the intention as like a backdrop for every action that you take, right? It's like a white screen almost. It's like a backdrop. So if I put against the intention, the action of, am I going to smoke a cigarette? Put that against my intention. And it's like, no, because my intention is to have a healthy body. Does that align with my intention? No, because that's totally out of alignment with my intention. That's not congruent, right? That's a good word in real estate. I know congruency in sales and all that stuff, right? So like, it's not congruent with who I say I'm committed to being. Now, let's try another one. Is this green smoothie, having this green smoothie in alignment with my intention? Yeah, because it nourishes me. It's fueling, it helps my body. Another example right now, I know you're doing this too, 75 hard. Is this in alignment with my intention? Yes, because I, get to work out. I'm committed to working out every day, drinking this much water, only eating clean food, no alcohol, reading, stimulating my mind, right? Being outside. Those are all things that are in alignment. But like the thing that I think trips people up is they set an intention, then they have an opportunity to choose. So let's say that someone has been, like, and again, no judgment for any of this. This is just simply part of the human experience. Drugs, alcohol, sex, like all of these addictions, all these things are part of what makes us human, and we all got to move through them, or we don't. That's our choice, right? But I bring them up here so that the listeners can get that this isn't just like, we're not just like shooting the shit in the air. We're actually talking about real life things, which I think is extremely important. So let's say you had the intention of, I want to, again, be really healthy. So if you have a program, a pathway, a neural pathway in your brain, you've been programming, which every time you're stressed, you decide to smoke some weed, right? And I had that as like when I was dealing with like med school and not being happy with my life, I would just, when I was stressed, I would smoke pot. No one knew it, but I was using that as a way to hide my unhappiness, right? And a lot of people will do that, especially now with stress and all that stuff, which is, I get it. It's all good. So, you make an intention to live a healthy life. Let's say 2022, you're like, I'm going to be healthy. And then the addiction shows up and you're like, shit. And then sometimes you do it and then feel shit because it does not align with your intention. And then it's like, fuck, like, sorry. I don't know if I was allowed to swear.
No, it's all good.
But it's like, F word. No, it's like, shit, I did that. And then you start going spiraling downwards, right? We've all experienced that where you're like, oh, like I said, I would do this. I wouldn't do it. And now I'm a bad person and blah, 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 blah. We all go through it. You start to spiral downwards. Then the next time an opportunity to smoke weed or do something that doesn't align with your intention shows up, your willpower, your mental power is weaker. So then you're like, fine, I'll do it. The cravings are stronger than your desire to hold your intention, right? And it's like this muscle starts to fatigue until you're just like, screw it, I'm like done with this intention, this New Year's resolution crap, like I don't want to do this anymore, and blah blah blah. And then people start to say, well, I can't do it. Oh, like I could never give up smoking, I've tried so many times. Well, the thing is because your intention and your desire and your willpower for the intention was not as strong as the muscle for the addiction, right? Whether it's addiction to Netflix, to shopping, to porn, to drugs, whatever it is, even your addiction to stress. That's a huge one for realtors. I've worked with a lot. And I know they're just like, go, go, go. But it's an addiction. It's that dopamine hit, that adrenaline that fuels the constant cycle, right? So just to kind of go back to now, well, what if your intention is something like, again, let's go back to the healthy eating, because I feel like that will resonate with a lot of people. So healthy eating, then you have the opportunity to start to, you're like, okay, green smoothie, boom. It's like a point for your intention. You start to build a stronger muscle. You're like, okay, great, I had a green smoothie today. Wow. And something like 75 hard is so amazing because you're giving your brain dopamine hits and rewards for doing good things that you're committed to, right? If someone's not committed to being healthy, then that's not going to serve them. But if you're committed to it, great. Doing 2 workouts, boom, check. Reading, check. Drinking a gallon of water, check. You do that over day 1 and you feel so powerful and resilient. Then the next day shows up, maybe some addictions are kicking in. Maybe like, oh, I just want to eat that junk food, or man, that cookie looks so good, or that cake, or whatever. But you're like, no, I've already done day 1. I'm committed. Let me just keep going and see what happens. So then the intention shows up again. I want to be healthy. So then you start smoothie, walking, this, that. And before you know it, you're on the momentum, right? Momentum is an important concept, important word. You're building this momentum in the direction of your highest success. But it has to start with those minute details. It cannot be that you just half-ass go into it and say, well, I'll see what happens. That's, like I've heard a lot of like spiritual people, well, we'll just go with the flow and see what happens. Yes. However, under a context, you have to have an intention to hold the space. Like, it's like, if I'm going to be healthy and my commitment daily is I'm going to do my workouts and read my books and do that stuff and work on my business, I'm not going to go OCD and plan every single thing at every single point and like go super insane into it, because that may not be like flow enough for me. But the flow in that would be, okay, well, I'm going to aim to have my workout in the morning before, my walk. And then in the afternoon, I'm going to have my calls. Some calls may move around, but that's okay. So that's kind of the flow within the realm of setting the intention. Any other questions on that? I feel like I went pretty deep.
That was amazing, actually, what you said, because what so many people don't understand about the self-development or the self-care or self-help movement or this, this idea is that they think it's just something to almost, and that's the reason why people don't believe in it, is because they think it's just something for people to kind of shower themselves with, with love and comfort. But what you said right there, and this is something that I'm beginning to realize more and more, in the congruency between different thought leaders, because I love studying this idea. This is something I'm very passionate about, is that keeping your promises to yourself. That's something that I can really kind of pinpoint on and hear, different people say it in different ways, but keeping your promise that you made to yourself. And that's what's going to essentially set your identity, build your self-esteem, and then create, like you said, that momentum to keep you moving forward, taking the right actions, taking the aligned actions with your intention and your goal as well. Because, and what you said about moving the needle earlier on, that's how you kind of move the needle. But the important thing is, first you got to know what that needle is. Then you can build that identity for yourself, that self-image, through the little actions that you take daily. And that's what's really going to make you into, the person that you want to be, or the success that you want to have as well. So
I want to just touch on one thing you mentioned, which I think would be really helpful. I mean, it's been helpful for me, and even just to say out loud, but it's like, with the keeping your promises to yourself, something I've explored within myself and discovered is, when I make too many promises to myself, I don't keep them. Like, it's like I have this like view that I'm going to get like 100 things done today. And then I go into overwhelm when I don't do all of them. right? So it's like, if I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this and this and this and this and this, yeah, it's going to be such a productive day. And then I only do two things because those two things took a lot of time and I really focused on it. The rest just kind of doesn't happen. Then I've set myself up for failure, right? I put myself in a trap, which then I'm like, well, I didn't do what I said I was going to do. And now blah, blah, blah. And it kind of spirals you down. So it's that like balance. And I'm like discovering it every day of being compassionate with yourself of, okay, like, what am I realistically going to do today? Yes, I have a business to build and I'm not going to sell 100 packages in one day. I'm going to work on this a little bit today. For today, for example, like I have a couple calls later, I have this call with you, but I'm not like the old me, even like 6 months ago, would have tried to like squeeze all the stuff in between and be like, okay, I'm going to do this and then this and this to almost like feel good. But also it's like your ego trying to set you up for failure. So like just to be mindful of that is like having something every day that you're committed to, that you're like, yes, I'm going to do this because it's for my highest good, right? Like 75 Hard is helping me significantly because I'm like, I get to accomplish that. And then the rest is like cherry on top, Yep. So just to put that out there.
No, exactly. That is perfect. I think that's what people need to hear, is that keeping your promises to yourself. And the best way to do that is to not make promises that you're not going to keep.
Right. Because you write something down and in your mind, you're like, I'm not actually going to do that. Like, have you ever had that experience?
Of course, I think we all had.
Yeah. We're just this thing's like, you're not actually gonna do that. And I'm like, yes, I am. It's kind of like trying to prove to yourself that I'm worthy, I can do it, I'm enough, right? That subconscious is trying to come out. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And, everybody talks about setting big, audacious goals, but, set something that you actually believe you can accomplish. Don't think, you can believe in, try to lie to yourself, because this is all in the integrity and the keeping in congruence with, your alignment and your intention, is that, if you're going to say you're going to do something, actually believe it. Don't lie to yourself and just say you're going to do it. But deep down inside, you're not going to do it.
Right.
Then that becomes a habit, and that's really bad.
It sets you up for failure, and it's an addiction, right? Again, these little things that we do that aren't in our highest good, that constantly keep us like stuck, are addictions to certain patterns of suffering. Suffering is an addiction because there's a payoff. You get to be a victim, right? And maybe this isn't something that people have consciously looked at, but it's like, if you could just get that in this experience, am I being a victim? Am I showing up as a victim? What is happening here? Who am I being in this? Those are important questions to ask. And something I wanted to point to is when you talked about the big audacious goal, I think that's like amazing. Like to have such a wild goal and a vision for your life, or like, like for me, it's like right now, I'm kind of just like, I'm living in Canada, it's cold. And one of my big dreams is to own a big, beautiful property by the ocean somewhere. I don't know yet specifically, but like have that as a big goal. But I don't know how that's going to happen. That's the thing. Like as I stand right now, right here or sit, I don't know the steps. I don't know like how much it's going to take. I don't know where it's going to be. I just see the vision in my mind, and that's the energy and the goal that's coming through. But there's also a magic in surrendering that to the universe. This is where, manifestation and law of attraction and all that stuff comes in too, where it's like you have this big goal and you just kind of trust and let go, because the steps that need to align will show up, but we can't force these things either. So like there's been so many times where, even just to bring it closer to home with like for realtors, is like so many times where I've been like, I'm, really creating the space and the intention for the perfect client to show up, that's aligned, that has my values, that, is not afraid to invest in themselves, all this stuff. And then I like kind of put that out there and I just chill. I'm not like obsessed about it every single day, right? Like struggling to get it done and feeling like a failure if I haven't, because that makes my vibrational weird and like, right? So I just chill out. I go on my day. I feel good. I do my best. I take the action. I connect with people and I feel grateful for what I have. And then before I know it, this person introduced me to this person, and who then turns out to be this client that I'm like, oh my gosh, I've been like looking for you. This is perfect. And it like lines up. So there's this like practicality meets spirituality, beautiful kind of point that you start to see more of in your life as you start to trust more, but you also start to expand your mind more too.
Exactly. Yep. And something I really wanted to get your take on, just to, hearing the stories that you've been telling and the perspectives that you've been offering is, and this is something I think you really touched on just a little bit in the beginning when you're introducing yourself is,
Mm-hmm.
what is the meaning of success, right? I think that is
Mm.
something. It's such a big question,
Oh
right? It's
yeah.
such a it's such
Yeah.
a it can get into like 3 or 4 hours of conversation and getting
I know.
nowhere. But in just in your opinion and through your experience, right? What is the meaning of success, and how should people find you know their meanings in their success? Because it's not always, and I know it's not always in monetary value. It's in
Mm,
different things as well.
that is a very good question, and something I've been pondering for a long time. It's, it's one of those things that keeps changing and keeps transforming, yet there is an overarching belief of that within each of us. Um, like for me right now, where I'm at in life, I'm like, to be successful for me is like to, at the end of the day, feel like, wow, today I like made a difference for people. I like added value. I was my best self. I didn't compromise my values to serve people. I did what I said I was going to do. I felt good, and I go to bed feeling like happy and aligned. But then other days it's like I may feel like shit when I go to bed, just kind of being real. It's like other days, I'm like meditating and like bawling my eyes out because there's just feelings and emotions coming up that I have no idea where they're coming from. But does that mean I'm less successful? No. I think honestly, and you're right, this could go on like there's so many like layers, because I think people want to hear like, this is what success is, and it's like money, or it's, this, or the love, or the relationships. But I just truly feel that like if I'm continuously striving to be my best self, it's going to look different, but I'm still going to be successful. And that's something that I like commit to daily. I'm like, okay, Kacy, like, you got this today, just one step at a time. That's what like success is like consistently just growing. And even if I'm not doing anything, even if there's weeks where I'm like scared shitless to take the next action because my dream is so big and audacious, I'm still successful. Because if I stand in that realm of I'm a success, whether I do something or I don't, I'm a success whether I make money today or I don't, I'm a success whether someone else thinks I'm worthy or, whatever, I'm a success. I showed up, I'm here, I'm feeling my feelings, I'm living my life, I'm making, my reality. Just I'm showing up here and now. Because like it's so often that like the programming around success, and this is something I'm still working through, is like if you make a certain amount of money or you do a certain thing, then you're successful. So what happens when you don't do those things? Then what are you telling your subconscious? What are you telling that little inner child within you? That you're not worthy, that you're not successful, that you're a failure? And this is stuff that I've seen come up is like, like I used to, when I was working, I used to work for a real estate company years ago. And then I own my own business, right, in real estate. But I was making like six figures even at my job. And then even way more when I had my own company. But now it's like, it looks different. I'm building a business from this ground up, and it's not the same amount of financial, gains, yet I'm happier. And I know that over time, my success is going to build in that level. But I think like what's coming through is like there's pillars of success. There's different levels. So like self-worth, worthiness, self-love, that's a level of success. Relationship with, your loved ones, that's a level of success. Your career, your finances, that's a level of success. There's all these different pillars to our life. And at the end of the day, we can't say that we worked on all of them every single day because there's only so much time and energy we have. But if we can just be happy with today and be kind and compassionate with ourselves, and then continue to move through the next day and the next day and just feel genuine appreciation in life, I think that really feels successful.
Exactly. And because we only have one, right? We only have one life.
That's
We
it.
can't redo it.
It's not perfect. It's never going
No.
to be. There's no such thing as perfection. We are imperfectly perfect. And we just got to just like find that beautiful balance between like, you know, being happy with what we have and the gratitude in our hearts with like, okay, I'm grateful I had this. And also having our vision pull us towards what's greater. Because so often it's that we're not happy with where we're at and we want to get to the next place so bad that we in turn like ignore the now, right? And then life falls apart, but we're chasing this vision, but our families are unhappy. You know, there's all this stuff happening. So it's like that beautiful balance between like, okay, I love my home now. I love my partner. I love the amount of money I'm bringing in. I'm grateful. And I know I can do better. And I'm going to keep going and I'm going to keep growing. And that's life. It just wants to expand. Right now, I'm reading The Science of Getting Rich. And it talks about just like life wanting to expand life. It's like our whole purpose, you know, is to be rich, because when we're rich, we can actually experience life to its fullest. We can actually literally have the desires fulfilled so that we can have the material things to be able to experience life truly. And it's like, you know, it's just very interesting because it adds on different layers of what success is, but it's just like essentially to say that like you ultimately need money to be successful, yes, but you don't have to have that physically yet to feel successful.
Wow. That's something that wow, that's something that people can really take a moment to really think about kind of in their lives right now, right? If you think any listeners listening to this right now, I mean, really kind of think about, you know, what your goals are financially in the future, but you know how you're feeling right now, whether, you know, you don't have to, you know, be this multimillionaire to feel successful,
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean you should never go after the multimillion dollars.
Yes, because you deserve the multi-million dollars. It is your birthright. You are born to be rich. This poverty consciousness is not natural. It's not normal, natural law. There's so much abundance in the universe. It's not that when I get something, someone else gets less. It's as I want something and someone else wants something, the universe expands to literally give more and more and more and more. And so that is that abundance mindset. And so we are all born to be rich. We deserve to be rich. We deserve to have these experiences because we're here on earth to experience this. Not saying we're not going to have hardships and we're not going to deal with stuff, but we deserve richness, right? And it's like, but you can't get to richness by feeling like shitty or like a lack of gratitude. It's the same thing of what is the energy you're putting in before you take that action. Are you going to show up to the door of being a millionaire feeling unhappy, unfulfilled, and shitty? Because there's a lot of those out there that have horrible relationships, that are not happy, that are in the prison of their own making. Versus, are you going to be grateful with where you're at, continue to build, and then before you know it, the millions are in your reality, and you're just like, oh, this is exactly where I envisioned myself to be, and I'm here and I'm happy and I'm fulfilled, right?
Exactly. And that's a really great point, because like Napoleon Hill said, when riches start to come, they start to come in all forms, and you can't stop them, right? That's just a
No.
paraphrase of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Downpouring.
yeah.
You're like, oh my God. Yeah.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
and people don't, you know, when they're in their hardest days, or you're really having a, you know, a particularly hard day, or you know, somebody
Mm-hmm.
just chewed you out over the phone on a cold call or something like that. It can be hard to get realigned with that. But you know,
Yes.
just understand that, you know, what we're saying right now is, you know, these are natural laws of the universe, right? You know,
Absolutely.
somebody else's success actually will not hinder yours, and there's an abundance for everybody to be out there. And this is important stuff. So I mean, if you're listening to this, I would really suggest sharing it to a loved one, or just
Mm-hmm.
to a business partner, or somebody that you really care about as well, because this is, I think this is somebody that not just like real estate professionals or entrepreneurs need to know, but anybody out there in the world who's feeling unhappy or want more. These are things that I really think we should take more time as a collective, as a species almost
Mm-hmm.
to discover more and learn more about. But kind of moving on to another subject, I guess,
Sure.
a little bit more related to real estate.
Yeah.
How did you choose real estate? Like what made you choose the real estate route when it came to picking a type of industry to help?
Yeah, that's a good question. For me, I had always been, like I said, like for a lot of portion of my life, I was always into like personal development, entrepreneurship, in the latter half of when I decided, okay, well, I'm not going to be following this norm anymore, this traditional way of success or education. I'm going to go into this world. And I ended up meeting like a lot of realtors, a lot of people, and like just learning a lot about like rich dad, poor dad, like just so much in the world of real estate around wealth and success and, like legacy and real estate just had that like energy. And I wasn't always like drawn to it, but I felt connected in some way of like, okay, this is a path that I don't know how it's going to help me, but there's a way that it will. And so I just found that like when we decided to start our agency and we were like figuring out what niche we wanted to go after and connect with and the people we wanted to serve, it was like real estate just felt good because the people that we felt we could connect with were very into personal development and relationship building. And I know that like, there are some marketers out there who are like, and I mean, I love you guys, realtors, you're amazing. But there's some marketers who are like, some realtors are so shitty and they don't care about their clients and they're awful clients and blah, blah, blah. And they used to, a lot of marketers that we worked with would say a lot of those things, but I truly believe it's the perspective and the lens through which you're looking at. So as a marketer who's saying that their clients are shitty, who are you being and how are you serving them, right? So just to kind of put that out there. But I also know that in realtors' eyes, marketers also have a bad rap because like there's just so many of them and there's just so much and so many messages and DMs, like, all that stuff. I get it. I was in that world. But what I realized is like I would, through law of attraction, I would connect with the ones that I needed to connect with at the time that I needed to learn the lesson. So if there was a really intense client that I got, I needed to learn that lesson to say no in the beginning. But then there were super amazing ones that like turned out to be eventually like coaching clients that then like there's one of my clients, she was a realtor and she decided through our work together, we worked together last year for almost like 6-7 months. She discovered this newfound passion for writing and creativity and her spiritual connection. And so she actually, and I helped her with like systems and structures and stuff because I also like love that world of things. But essentially, I helped her systematize and automatize her business so that she could literally right now, she's like off like traveling for like 4 months and like, while her business is still running. So it was really cool to see that like there were different levels through which I could support these entrepreneurs because like, yes, there are many business owners, but there's also a difference between a business owner and an entrepreneur. The entrepreneur has that mindset, that growth, that, that expansion mindset to really not just expand their business, but to expand themselves. And those are the people that I was committed to working with. And for me, it was like, real estate was just like the most aligned route. And I mean, we met, for example, through like Grant Cardone's event, right? And that was something I was really into. So, that's how I aligned with you. So it was like, yeah, I just feel like you guys are just amazing and you're doing wonderful work in the world because, having people be in their dream homes and all that is so important because it's safety, it's stability, and kind of bringing it to the world of spirituality. It's like your root chakra, it's your grounding, your home. So if you can help someone find stability in their life through having a safe home, what would that look like for the world if everyone had a safe home, right?
Exactly. And that's something, real estate professionals, realtors, really just realtors out
Yeah.
there need to kind of shift their mindset, I would say, if you're listening to
Mm,
this. You're not selling real estate. You're selling a dream. You're selling, like
mm,
you said, Kacy, you're selling a safety. You're
yeah.
selling, that dream life that people have painted in the picture in a paint a picture of their dream life in their heads. Can't talk
Mm-hmm.
today, but
It's okay.
essentially, you're not selling just that property on 123 Main Street. You're selling the dream of, mom, dad, brother, sister, and a dog and a golden retriever out in the yard, having
Yeah.
Sunday picnic. That's the dream that you're selling. And kind of think about that. Business is always secondary. It's the life that counts, right? So, I mean, just kind of moving forward and looking into the future, Kacy. I mean, you're clearly, you're done with the real estate side of the business, but you're onto, in my opinion, bigger and better things. And I really
Mm,
think this is going to be huge, and you're going to become somebody really influential, just based
mm,
on, the energy that you have and the amount of work you've put into studying this subject. But for the audience out there who have really resonated with what you said today, and
mm.
really want to learn more about what you do and what you're going to be doing moving forward, can you tell them a little bit more about your journey going forward, and actually how they can reach you as well, and what's
Yeah.
the great way to connect with you, either over social media or over the internet?
Yeah, totally. Thank you, first of all. I really felt that, and I really appreciate your love, and I appreciate your belief in me, because often we do the work, but it's when someone's like, hey, you've come so far, we're like, oh snap, yeah, it puts things into perspective, just so thank you, I really appreciate that. In terms of what's next, yeah, like I am committed to just having people be the best version of themselves. And so my journey looks like this right now, from what I can see. So a little while ago, I got this idea to start a podcast called The Conscious Human Experience. It's essentially about bringing light to life's greatest challenges. So I myself, have been through a lot of stuff that I'm like, wow, I brought consciousness to that experience, awareness, consciousness or awareness, thinking about thinking to that experience. And because I brought information to that experience, which is light. Light is information. And therefore, I could extrapolate from that experience what I needed to learn. And those are nuggets, because it's through those challenges that we actually learn about ourselves. We learn about the world. We learn about each other, right? If everything was perfect all the time, sure, we'd be in a state, but we as humans are always looking for contrast. We want the contrast to then expand further. You have the poverty, so you're like, oh yeah, I want the wealth. You have the shitty relationships, so that you can say, I want to grow from here and have an amazing relationship. So you know what you don't want, so you can create what you do want. So like with the conscious human experience, I really intend to share a lot of these transformative stories with people to help add value to their daily lives, so that if they are having a really not so great day, like you said, or they've been rejected on a cold call, they can tune in and listen to an episode that's going to help them, up level their energy, because energy is everything. If you can change your energy, you can change your life. So that's a project I'm working on, the conscious human experience. Another aspect of my business I'm growing is definitely like working one-on-one with clients. So I am looking to connect with those that feel that like they're like ready to take their life to the next level, and not from a place of intensity. That's not how I work. I'm not the coach that's like, you can do this, go like 10 more push-ups. I'm more like, okay, so you stopped on 7. Got it. What happened? Where did you stop? How did that feel? Oh, okay, I got it. I understand. So I'm the person that's going to hold space for your expansion. I'm going to teach you to be compassionate with yourself. And through doing that, you're literally going to transform your world and transform your business, because your business is a direct reflection of you. So that is the work I'm committed to doing. If someone is looking to reach me and they want to just have a chat, just like a Zoom call or a phone call, like I'm happy to just talk to people too. That's part of my everyday, is just to add value to whoever I can. They can just send me an email, Kacy@kacysing.com. I'm still, building out my site and doing all that stuff. So I don't have it all together. I'm not perfect. I don't have all the social media handles and all that, but email I think is like the most authentic right now form of just like, if someone's actually interested, they could just send me an email and I'd be happy to respond. And when it comes to social media, Kobe, I'm going to be super honest with you. I'm just like, I'm not sure if I'm committed to building my business on social media. It's just like, through what I've seen by being in the marketing realms, through what I've felt and experienced, and the authenticity that wasn't really coming through, I'm like exploring other ways. I'm like, how can I get creative with how I connect with the people that truly want to connect with me? Not that I'm just out there posting stuff so like I'm liked or this or that. It's like I want to build an authentic following of people, right? And not saying that social media is unauthentic, but the premise of it is like manipulation and advertising and just kind of getting that and then saying, okay, well, what do I want to create? So I'm still in the grappling of that, of how I want to go about that. But ultimately, my podcast, Connecting with Me 101, I will have a website soon. And of course, through your podcast, more people will connect too. So yeah. And if you could link my email, like in when you send out this description, that would be great.
I will. Yes, I will include your email down in the show notes below. Whether you're listening to this on audio or watching this on YouTube or wherever you might be consuming this piece of in my opinion, extremely valuable. About an hour of content here from Kacy, because she really shares a lot of stuff that I think everybody needs to tune into more often. And we have your site and your podcast built out, we'll update the links.
Yes,
so
thank you. I appreciate
so if you guys are listening to this quite a down the line in the future, there will be links to Kacy's information as well. So I feel like I've taken up enough of your time today. I know your time is valuable. I definitely want to have you back on the podcast. There's so much value that you've shared today, and I know there's so much more that you can share as well. But just any parting thoughts for the listeners out there? Any parting thoughts for them?
Any parting thoughts? Honestly, just keep going. Just take it one day at a time. Just in the moments between the moments, just breathe. Just get that you're here now. Anytime you feel anxious, overwhelmed, because there's just like a lot happening, just take a moment and remind yourself, I'm here now, right? Just breathe. And one other thing that I want to add that I think could really, really transform anyone's life listening here is like, just to go briefly into this last year. And I feel like this is important to share with your listeners so that they get the weight of how this served me. So last year, and I know Kobe knows this, but I'm going to share. So essentially, my husband and I got married, and a month after we got married, we ended up helping this young woman who needed a home to stay in because she was being abused at home. She was 16. She came to our door. We helped her out. At that point, our life was pretty good. Like we were making good money, our marketing business was flowing, everything was like moving forward. And essentially, she came to our house, asked for support. We said yes. Literally after that, so much stuff unfolded. We were accused by the abuser of human trafficking. We were interrogated by police. Like there was so much stuff for months that went on. There were people giving us death threats. I didn't understand why. Like this was just so intense. The mom was essentially just, like she was just playing out a show basically. And we just happened to be a part of it where we were helping this young woman. So the point of the story is that, and ultimately the young girl, found a home and she's moved on. So we did help her get her life together and her on her feet. But basically what had happened is my life had been so disrupted. I had a routine that was like, I did this, I did my working, I talked to my clients, had my little morning routine and stuff like that. But it wasn't until shit hit the fan and I was like totally in chaotic mode that I realized the importance of my morning routine. And again, this is an episode we can do later about just morning routines in and of itself. But just this is a nugget for the listeners is like, no matter what you're going through, whatever chaos, whatever life circumstance you have right now, if you can just invest, even if it's 10 minutes a day on one thing in the morning, that really sets you up for success, whether it's meditating for 10 minutes, journaling for 10 minutes, just sitting silently, going for a walk by yourself. If you can do that one consistent thing and lean on it, it's going to expand over time. Your morning routine is going to start to get more, it's going to start to become more of an important part of your day because that is your time with yourself. That's your time with clearing your head, clearing your energy, and setting your day up. So during that time, my morning routine served me like a crutch. I was committed to that. I moved through it. And now, 6-7 months later, I'm here able to speak with you, able to be in a positive headspace, even though there was so much trauma that went on because I committed to that. So, just putting that out there. There's an app called Insight Timer, which I think could serve people significantly. It's free, thousands of meditations. So that's, yeah, that would be a huge, huge thing you could do starting today.
Wow, Kacy, I really appreciate your time here today. I think those are really great nuggets and fantastic value that you've not just given, I think, our listeners, but me as well. And I definitely, like, I'm putting this out there. I definitely will have you back on the podcast as well, because there's so much of your story that I still want to tell that we haven't told yet, but we definitely will, because you just possess so much information. And you have, in my opinion, such a rich life experience, not just from what you've studied, but from what you've actually done and experienced in life as well. But you guys out there listening to this, watching this on YouTube, Spotify, wherever you might be listening to this or watching this, give it a like, subscribe, share it with people that you care about. Share this I think really transformative episode with somebody that you really think that can benefit from it as well. But thank you so much, Kacy, for being on my show today.
You're so welcome, Kobe. You're doing amazing. And I'm just so excited to watch you grow.
All right. Thank you so much, Kacy. And thank you guys for listening as well. I will see you guys on our next episode of the Free Life Agents podcast.